Regardless of combat or content, this is a good question. YC over on Twitch just asked, regardless of content or combat, which MMO had the most enjoyable sandbox world to just explore in your opinion? Oh, Lord of the Rings Online. Without a doubt, Lord of the Rings Online. Seamless world, no zones, other than some instances. But I love Middle Earth, so for me, being able to explore Middle Earth has always been the most enjoyable experience of my life. Because I grew up with those books. You know, I read The Hobbit when I was 5, I read Lord of the Rings when I was 7, and then I read those books every single year up until I was in my mid-20s. Chris and I watched the movies every single extended editions only, of course. We watched the 3 Hobbit films and then the 3 Lord of the Rings films every single year. We're getting ready to start our watch through towards the end of November because Christmas is Lord of the Rings is a Christmas tale for those of you who don't know the timelines. So for me, as a huge Middle Earth fan, Lord of the Rings Online, without a shadow of a doubt, because I've got a series actually that I did on YouTube years ago called Lotro Tourism, and we literally started in the Shire and we followed in the footsteps of the Fellowship all the way up to the Misty Mountains. I think that was when I stopped the episodes because we'd done 30 or so episodes, and I would go to the places that you read in the books, in the Hobbit books. So we went and, you know, we go, here's the birthday, you know, here's the party tree, here's the prancing pony, here's Weathertop, here's the stone trolls in the troll shaws, here's this over here, here's Rivendell, here's Gollum's cave down in the bottom of the Misty Mountains in the Goblin City. Dude, Lord of the Rings Online, without a shadow of a doubt. Just, there is no better MMO in my mind for an immersive experience. Now, the game is dated in terms of like the combat, it's old school tab targeting. The character models are definitely dated at this point, but I mean, the game is 18 years old, 2007. So yeah, something like 18 years old. It's getting old. But it's still, they've done a great job updating the world environments. But it's just such a pleasure to be able to go through and see all the places that you can read about in the book. And I think that Turbine and then Standing Stones has done a phenomenal job with crafting a world that is book relevant and book accurate. Because all of Middle Earth, in terms of what is in the books, is in Lord of the Rings Online. So you can literally, if you want to follow Boromir's journey from Minas Tirith as he rode to Rivendell, you can take that journey and follow in his footsteps and literally recreate that path. You want to recreate the path of the hobbits and start with Bilbo, and you want to recreate that path and take the journey that Bilbo and the dwarves took and actually follow in their footsteps and hit every point along the way that they hit on the journey of the Hobbit. You can do that. You can go. You can visit all those places. Go through Mirkwood, end up at the Lonely Mountain. You know, follow in the footsteps of the hobbits. Visit and I think that's one of the cool things too, is like, once you get beyond the Shadows of Angmar questline, which is the base game, once you get to Moria, like the beginning of Volume 2 is literally, it's one of my favorite quests in the game. Is there's a moment where you talk to Elrond and you see the Fellowship off, right, as they leave Rivendell, and it's this really cool cutscene. There's some interactive natures to it, like you're actually interacting with and talking to the hobbits and stuff as they're about to leave, but then you see them off, and it's just, they all walk down the hill from the lonely house, from the last homely house, right? They walk down the hill, and then it fades to black, and you're in Volume 2, and that's when you go to the doors of Moria, and you get into Moria. From that point on, you're following in the footsteps of the Fellowship all the way out through the rest of the volume of that game. And so one of the highlights for me in my experience in that game was getting to the Rohan content, because that's when they had the biggest budget. It was their fourth expansion, something like that. They had a big budget and they did way more voice acting than they did anywhere else in the game. And so there are these really good cutscenes where like Theoden and Gandalf and Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn are all having fully voiced cutscenes. And there was a moment where I was in the middle, the last time I played that game for any significant amount of time, I was in the middle of, I did a vodcast series on YouTube called Mondays in Middle Earth. So every Monday, um, we would do like I was doing read-throughs of the Lord of the Rings, and we did The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion, and I read through all of those books and did these episodes reviewing each chapter as we went along the way. And I was reading the Helm's Deep stuff at the same time as I was in Rohan with my character. And so I had just read the chapter where they come out of Helm's Deep and the trees are there, and Theoden is like expounding on how the myths and legends of his youth were come to life, and it's this sense of wonder and joy and everything else in the book. And then in the game, because it's not based on the movies, the game is based on the books, you get to actually see Theoden in the game as he's confronted with the Ents, as they've just killed the orcs after Helm's Deep, and he's just like marveling, and it's fully voiced, and they did an exceptional job. So for me, I've played a lot of games over the years. Lord of the Rings Online to this day is like the best game in terms of just giving me that sandbox experience, that immersive world experience. I'm gonna clip that out for YouTube. Actually, that was a good little. Promote that for Lotro. It's a good game. I mean, it's super dated these days, but I don't think I've come across anything yet that has grabbed me in that way. Star Wars: The Old Republic would be a second, but that's another, because I know Star Wars in the same way that I know Middle Earth, and so I've had those similar experiences in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Also because and that's a fully voiced cinematic experience as well, which is why that game is also usually up there in the top of my lists. They're both getting older now is the problem, and I love those games deeply, but I don't really have any desire to play them all the time anymore, just because they are dated. They don't have controller support. I'm a mouse and keyboard only, and I've put thousands of hours into each one of those games, so it's kind of like I've done my time. But I would love, like, I love Star Wars games. I love Lord of the Rings games. Always gonna play them. Always gonna love them. Anything Middle Earth, anything Star Wars, anything Star Trek, generally speaking, I'm gonna watch, play, read, enjoy. There's a website called ESO Clock. Okay. Yeah, Hunter, it's the thing. Like, I think to this day when people ask me what's my favorite MMO, I still come back to Lord of the Rings Online. Um, I have yet to find a game that has been as like no other MMO has ever given me that experience of feeling like I am in a place that I know and love and can call home. Star Wars: The Old Republic is a close second. Um, but like, I put a lot of time into EverQuest over the years. I love EverQuest. I love EverQuest 2. They do not give me the same experience as Lord of the Rings Online and Star Wars: The Old Republic. The same thing with World of Warcraft. I've put time in World of Warcraft over the years. I've played Guild Wars 1. I've played Guild Wars 2. I've played Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online is another really good game, by the way. The ship combat is really fun, but the ground combat is so fucking horrible. I have had great times in Star Trek Online, but and they have done a good job of like getting the actors from the show to come on and like voice characters and do voiceovers and stuff. But man, the ground combat is so bad, and it looks like absolute dog shit in 2025. And that's the problem with like the combat in Lord of the Rings Online is it's just really badly outdated. Um, like even I don't like the combat in this game. I don't really care for that much, but I don't care because it's like less than 5% of what I'm doing. I'm focused on story, cinematics, cutscenes, working with Raz. Like I'm not really worried about the combat in this game. So even, it's not my favorite type of combat. Um, but I don't do much combat in this game. I'm mostly focused on storyline, and to me, it's just. I think I really did like New World's combat. To be honest with you, that was a really good combat system. It's very sad to see what's happening to that game. Um,